Don't you want it? 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 You lose your little mind. I'm dead.
IGHTS. Deadlights.
Deadlights.
Welcome to the Deadlights Podcast, Mini. I'm your host, Mini Sam.
I am Mini Leslie. I know how to spell, okay? But we're bringing you to another Minisode.
We believe you.
Mm-hmm.
We believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, we're just like to sing in the mini space. And
Absolutely.
usually we come out with some sort of song per minisode. I feel like today was the DADLIGHTS song. Before it was...
I have to think about that. I can't spell fast. I can't do anything fast.
My brain, that was like a really like overworked for it. So the rest of this minisode is going to be like a little behind.
A little behind?
That was
Okay.
hard for me.
You got it.
Yeah. My name is Sam. Here we go. Well, welcome to the minisodes.
Yeah, welcome, y'all.
And today our minisodes, it's like something you've heard over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Something that you know and just seems so cliche. Horror movie cliches. That's what we're talking about.
And cliches, you know, they don't necessarily have to all be bad.
Nope.
But there are some really bad ones out there.
And I was thinking about it. The horror genre is kind of like based on cliches.
They love them.
They love cliches. I mean, we have the many cliche tropes of if you have sex, you're gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the virginal girl, you're gonna make it all the way to the end and defeat the killer. And story points that have been set up so well in, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, that carry on for decades. Like even in the movie that we watched most recently, we were seeing so many references to those 70s slashers that still carry on.
Oh yeah. With a modern twist. In
Trying
the sense, yeah. We're trying to stray away from the virgin stereotype of the cliche of like, because I think we're removing ourselves from religion, even though we're incorporating it because horror, you know, like you can't have a pure demonic or bad guy without there being a pure like harmonious kind of like character. And in the most recent film that we watched, we are seeing that a lot of people are flawed. We're all flawed and there's no purity, you know, to grab onto because we're human. But do you like the trope? Do you like the trope of here comes someone who is pure, you know, removed from all sin and hasn't done anything bad for them to be the heroes?
I don't like it mostly because it feels unrealistic, you know,
Right?
like
Yeah.
those aren't real people, you know. Someone who is this like quote unquote the final girl who is supposed to be this pure of heart, pure of soul, the only thing that can actually defeat the ultimate evil. That seems unrealistic. But what I do like about it is thematically, it does make sense. You know, you have a character who is quote unquote at the beginning of the film, the weak character or the meek character or the person that we can feel like we can count on the least or whatever, you know, we count them out. Yes. I like that character usually becomes the character that's our hero. And what specifically I like about horror is that character is usually a female. I feel like horror films in general, there's been a lot of misrepresentation of females for sure in horror and in all film. But what I do think horror has always done is made the female characters the most strong characters. So that is a theme that has carried through even modern times that I really enjoy. I I like giving that platform to female characters or the quote unquote underdog characters that then rise back up and become the heroes in the end. That's the one cliche that I enjoy.
Yeah.
That has carried through.
I agree with you. As a woman, I do love seeing some strong women. And I mean, because if you look at reality, we're targeted more, female of all. What am I trying to say? All females. That includes everybody who wants and is a female. So to have something being shown to you and it's violent, but you're the one that's going through and you're the hero and you're persevering at the end is very empowering. It helps you. I mean, I see this genre to kind of keep myself on my toes in a way. I like the genre for everything, but also kind of does help me to kind of just take it in and be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that I can protect myself this way or whatever, So yeah, it's a really great cliche. I'm liking that we're straying away from the purity and the virginity of aspect of that.
I agree with you in the way of like the one aspect of that is that these characters are supposed to be like the pure ones, and that is very much based in religion. Which, for 70s, 80s, 90s, those films where society is very much more based in religion, that makes more sense. But I like, yes, now we're moving away from our society being so based on religion, but we're still keeping that idea of the marginalized characters are the ones that come back and defeat the Jason or the Michael or whatever,
Yeah, whatever entity. Evil entity is coming.
Yeah, because you're right. Like, it then gives people who are watching these films like, oh shit, like I saw someone that looks like me and is like me defeat this big, powerful evil, and I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that horror has held on to that final girl really strong, and I'm glad that they have. Now, I mean, there are other things that the horror genre set up that we see over and over and over again that can get boring.
Yeah.
Can get boring.
Like what?
Well, this movie that we watched most recently, we talked about it in the episode, very heavily referencing Scream. Which Scream is I would say, massive mainstay in the horror genre. This kind of idea of a mass killer, this whodunit, we don't know who it is. Everyone has a motivation to be the killer. Who's it going to be at the end? And then we take the mask off at the end and, Scooby-Doo moment.
Yeah.
That feels very overdone. Unless they do it and give these characters motivations that we haven't seen before, this form feels very overdone. And at least in that film that we just watched, felt like they were just trying to be Scream without being Scream.
Yeah, it's very formulated.
Yeah.
It's like a pop song. You know what they're doing. They have their chorus. They have their bridge. They have the word that's going to be played over and over again for it to be catchy. There are ways to make something be mainstream if you just apply, the right formula. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, and yeah, that's just one thing that, okay, we've seen it. We love it. 20 years of it. Great. Can we then transform it? Can we evolve it? Can we fucking have different EVs here? Like,
yeah.
Just add to it. If not, take some elements away that are not working in modern day, And I do like then that the slasher film has now evolved to incorporate the technology that we have now. So there are films like, what is it called? I didn't see it because I particularly don't like this subgenre because it's spooky. But like stuff like dating apps and Uber, Lyft, that
Ride sharing.
yeah. What was that movie? There's a movie with the guy from Stranger Things.
Spree.
Yeah. So we're evolving now more into like, let's incorporate technology. Let's incorporate these things that we have made, and have it be a slasher film.
Yeah.
You know, I like that they're running with that. But this whole like whodunit kind of shit, I don't know. It's not working out for every single person that's putting it on.
That movie that we just reviewed, it just felt like we've seen that movie before.
Yeah.
And there was nothing really separating it from anyone. Thinking back on the movies that we've watched this season so far, I'm going back to It Follows, because that movie, very typical slasher form. And we talked very extensively in that movie about, even visually, very, very much embedded in the classic slasher films that we have. But they took that and then they added an extra layer of the killer is being followed. You're being followed because you had sex, which they took a cliche in the horror genre of people always have sex and they die. And then they grew that into the actual like theme for the whole movie. Yeah. So they evoed it. They evolved that part of the genre, and it made it feel familiar, but also completely new.
And now let's remove the sex part of that and just have the following part. And now we have Smile.
Yeah.
Where it's the concept of just this thing. It's ever ending.
And that is very, because I watched Smile recently. That's about trauma. That's about shared trauma and passing on, like the things that have gone on in your life that are traumatic. How does that then affect everyone around you? So yeah, and that's very,
which it does.
And in Smile, very Deadly like. But you're right. We're taking these forms that we know and that we love, and we're spicing them up. We're throwing different elements in there to really make it something new.
Yeah. And I do love when things are talking about something, talking about traumas, but not being so heavy-handed. If you look at Babadook, that is about postpartum depression. And you can kind of see it just in the acting, the emotions that it has, and you can feel it. It's not a great film or scenes where you're just like, you're feeling as exhausted as the mother, but yet there's this entity coming in and he's scary. And I love these kind of films because it's saying something without it having to be explained to us over and over throughout the whole movie. We don't need that. We are smart as audience members, and if we walk away being confused, it will keep you thinking about it. It still will hold on to something.
Yeah.
An imagination or something.
Yeah, because the best movies, and the ones I think we've talked about already, all these movies are giving us a lot to think about while also relying on story structure that we've seen before as the backbone. So we feel comfortable as the audience members watching this kind of story play out because we have seen this type of story play out before. But because of how they're heightening these different things like grief or trauma or the dangers of sex, that perspective is what then changes within this form that we know. And that makes it really interesting, and that makes us feel like we know it, but it's something completely new. We can leave it feeling confused, but also feel like we know what's going on. It's like finding the perfect recipe. We're going back to a food thing, but it's like finding that perfect combination of ingredients, not making it so overcomplicated, but not making it too simple where it's bland.
Yeah.
So it's a tightrope walk that these films that we've mentioned, I think, walks very well. They use those cliches that we love, but they give us something new to think about.
Yeah. And, you know, you can use cliches to benefit the story, emotions, the scene, whatever. But it has to, I don't know, like, would it take somebody that knows films or have seen horror films or just kind of understands where we're moving towards when it comes to these cliches?
And especially in horror, when there are cliches set up, you can then use the fact that someone is expecting a certain thing against them for a scare, or like we've seen this scene before. We know they're going to come out of this door, but oh no, they come out of this door. So you're right. The smart filmmakers that understand the audience member's perspective and the fact that we have seen decades and decades of horror before, and then using those cliches against the audience to subvert their expectations, then that's going to be a bigger scare or a bigger twist or whatever. Those are the best movies.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm gonna bring back the film that we just watched because there was a lot to say. We joked around that the killer could have been the grandma. That would have been much more of an interesting film because we knew who it was from the beginning. We just knew who it was. And because the film was already saying too much that it wasn't saying anything at all, that having a random ass person be the killer would have been more interesting. So yes, absolutely knowing the audience, knowing what we've been fed, knowing your past, or not the past, but just like the films from the past, grabbing elements you love and then just twisting it and making it your own is what I think will make you a great scriptwriter, director. And it just like reminds me also in improv, like, don't go for what's obvious. Like, we've heard it before, you know, we've laughed at that joke so many times it's not funny. Go for something that's absolutely you and so left field. Just go for it.
Yeah. I feel like I can like praise something more for at least trying to go for something out there than a film that is just giving us exactly what we expect.
And like you had stated before, if you're too worried about making something look pretty, you're not going to say anything at all. It's going to be mediocre. It's going to be bland. It's going to be 50 out of 100. But if you go for it and do something bad, there's still something there. It would be more enjoyable than something being mediocre.
Yeah. We've ended up back into a critique of the film that we just watched.
Well, no, we're talking about cliches.
True.
You know,
and if you want to know about cliches, go back and watch There's Someone Inside of Your House episode, because we talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
But
well, how about cliches of weapons? The knives.
Sure. And yeah, the knives and axes and machetes, like all these weapons that we've seen before. You know, do I ever get tired of like a good throat slash or something? No, if it looks good. But I mean, people are getting more and more creative with the ways that they're killing people. And I think that the best ones are ways when someone dies, it's actually saying something about their character or their faults or what led them there. That's what makes it more interesting. And I mean, we talked about the one death in There's Someone Inside Your House with the confessional where a character is stabbed in the mouth after they were talking about racist shit. That felt good. That felt like that makes sense. I like that this kill is justified in how this person lived their life. It's harder to do that, obviously, as a filmmaker or as a storyteller, but I think it's better than just coming around the corner and stabbing someone for no reason.
Yeah, like that one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. When there's practical effects, really good practical effects that happen with knives and stuff like that, I do appreciate that.
Mhm.
When it's overdone, that's when I'm just like, ooh, I don't know about that. So I typically love more when there's an entity or a monster that is at play. And there's so many cool scenes that we've seen so far. Ritual being one, where the monster, the demigod, had put stretch someone to be hung through the trees.
Oof.
In their horns and shit like that, where it's unsettling to a degree where it's like
the one kill, it's not even a kill that we see, but it's like the aftermath of a kill that always sticks out in my mind is in the Night of the Hunter, when the evil preacher kills the mom. We don't see him actually stabbing her, but we see her in the car underwater, tied up, and it's like the watery scene because he obviously threw her in a car and threw her in the river or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a shot of the mom tied up underwater, and that's it. We understand what happened.
Yeah.
But just the visual of that is just so shocking and so pretty. Like the shot is very pretty. Just like, oh my God. It's hard to know how to feel about that scene because you're like, wow, this is amazing what I'm looking at, but it's also a death.
Ooh.
So
yeah,
brutal.
How do you feel about us at this point with violence on screen and it being desensitized, because we're seeing more and more slashes and shit like that, and we can understand that they're practical effects. It is a film, but it is violence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned something that was brief, and I mean it is violent because like there is a lady and under the water she was killed and then submerged. But like, what if we take a step back? Have it not be so in your face, because like if it's not, I feel like we are spending a lot of time trying to make something so shocking that we're forgetting about the story. We're forgetting about, anything else. And we're just so consumed in trying to make
the effect look good.
Effects.
Yeah.
Which is, if the movie's all for that, let it just be that. Don't even fucking worry about spending time developing a character. Just fucking go.
Yeah. Let's see these kills. I think that has to go back to the story. And that goes back to who you're killing and who's killing. Like, whether you show it more or not, I think the decision has to be based off of what you're trying to say with the kill. Or whatever. I think that has to be a decision that you make. Like, are we showing this very graphically? If yes, okay, then why? Why are we putting this violence so in the audience's face? And then if you don't have an answer for that, then it's kind of like, okay, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've seen so many times where there's a kill that isn't even on screen, but it's still very effective and it's still shocking because our imaginations fill in those blanks.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's this balancing act of how much do you show and how much do you not show to make it scary and make it effective and make it meaningful to the story.
Like balance, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a lot. If I'm comparing comedy to horror, with a comedy, yeah, you're gonna have to spend some time on the jokes and try to make it meaningful and develop characters and such. Not saying that I know how to write a comedy script, but it does seem a little more doable than having a horror film where then now you're implementing special effects, graphic design, or all these other things while trying to also have a compelling story and build characters for characters that are going to just die.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me want to spend that much time on a character if I'm just going to kill them, you know?
But that's when it's most effective, though. When you do have that emotional connection to a character and then they kill him off, you're like, oh man, what?
Damn, that was my favorite one.
Dang. Yeah. So I think the best filmmakers make you care about all the characters that are going to die.
In a very short period of time.
Exactly. They make you care about them immediately just to kill them off. And that's when it becomes really effective because you're like, oh man, I didn't want to see them go. Oh
well,
man.
Damn.
Darn. And then that is like, with a character like that, you don't even have to really even show that much of the killing because the emotional impact is already there. You're like, oh, that character's gone. Oh no. What happened to him doesn't even really matter. So again, like we already said, it's like balancing these cliches and whatever new ideas. It's a balancing act. It's this constant juggle of when are we going to give them what they expect and when are we going to give them what they don't expect?
Yeah. You got to balance.
It's tough.
Balance it out.
Tough stuff.
And it must be really hard to just write a script.
Yep.
So
make a movie.
Make them over.
Damn.
So yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Cliches, y'all.
Cliches.
Keep doing them as long as they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do all of them, please, God.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, because then it just muddles things up.
Yeah. Oh,
Anyway,
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us in the Minisode space again.
Yeah,
we always have
buddy.
fun here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But before we go, let's do
Oh, sure.
as you all know, we are in Chicago and we are
What's that?
Chicagoans. And in Chicago, if you have not visited, there is a drink called Malort that is said by most to be like the worst liquor or liqueur in human history, I think I've heard.
In human history?
That's what I've heard.
I'm pretty sure there was worse things during the Prohibition.
I agree, but I think people really hate Malort. But not you and I.
No, we love it. I love it.
One thing that you and I have bonded over is our love of Malort.
And I loved it before I met you.
True. So this was an independent decision.
It was. And
Cheers.
This partnership works well.
Not bad. Not bad.
Tastes like you're chewing on grapefruit.
Yeah, very grapefruity.
Like literally just the peel, which I eat. Not all the time, but sometimes when the peel is good, it's good. It's a sweet and bittery.
So if you ever visit Chicago and someone's like, let's do a Malort shot, say absolutely yes.
Absolutely. Or you run across a really good deal where there's a Chicago handshake. Take it and fly.
Run
with it.
You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
I guarantee it.
I guarantee it. All right, let's get out of here.
Let's get out. I'm Leslie. You can follow me on Color Me Leslie.
And me at Beep Beep Richie T. And us at the Deadlights Pod.
Deadlights.
Also check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we're recording this at. But until next minisode,
let's get mini spooky.
DEADLIGHTS.